Cocktail hour. Gotta go. Bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cocktail Hour at Moorooduc Estate. How lovely to see you all. I'm glad to see that not everybody decided to give up on me just because I mentioned the evil word mocktails. And I know we've got some kids along as well, which is very good. Good on you, Genty. Good on you, Peter and Karen. Hello, Peter and Karen. Hello, Kay. Hello, Deb and Rob. Hello, Craig. And Joan and Karen. Renee and Matt, how you doing? 3 for you, 3 for the kids. Excellent. Cotty and John, how you doing? Oh, sparkling olive oil. How lovely. How delicious. Okay, excellent. Well, I've got the most amazing selection of stuff here. I'm very excited. I'm a little bit sad because young Hamish, who inspired this whole event, has had to go to his parent-teacher interviews, but he's going to watch later. So hi, Hamish. I hope you enjoy your mocktails later on tonight. I hope that you get some very good interviews. So I've got everything on the table. Hello, Linda and Steve. How you going? So before I get started with my mocktails and cocktails, I'm just going to show you something that Linda... So this whole thing I thought became very interesting to me a few years ago when a friend of mine in the wine industry who's also very into her yoga and looking after herself started talking to me about this new movement that was happening in America and in the UK called Sober Curious. Now, I'm not sober curious. I'm quite happy to have a drink every now and again. But it did make me think that we do spend a lot of our time socialising with alcohol. And for those of us who can't or would prefer not to sometimes, or just as we start opening up, and yes, we will start opening up again one of these days, and some of us have to drive, it's good to have some recipes up your sleeve and some options so that you don't have to be the person at the party drinking soda water all night or lemon, lime and bitters, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm very sick of lemon, lime and bitters. Who else is here? Alison and Andrew, lovely to see you. Excellent. Zach and Jack, g'day. Paul, Bella, Archie and Pippa, lovely to see you. Excellent. And Samantha, good. So I just think, sometimes you just want a refreshing drink that has got a bit of that sort of complexity and tanginess and freshness and refreshingness of a cocktail without necessarily needing to have that big kick of alcohol. And I'm also not very good on the fruity cocktails because I kind of, unless it's a cocktail like a martini, where it's just all about the alcohol, fruity cocktails tend to sneak up on me, and I often have found in the past, I tend not to drink them very much because I found that I just drink them too fast and then it's no fun for anyone. Hello, Anne-Marie, lovely to see you. Hello, Margaret. I think also this one goes out to all of everybody's kids who are joining in tonight. And hi, kids. It's awesome to be able to include you finally. You've spent nearly 2 years watching your parents huddle around the computer drinking wine with me. So tonight, this is an all-inclusive drinks night, and I'd better start making drinks or we're going to be here all night. G'day, Lachlan. How you going? Nice to see you. Right, so the first drink we're going to make, and hang on, I'm just going to turn you around because you've missed the sunset, but we're getting to that time of the year where the sunsets are looking good, and we've got nice, and this is my little bar that I've got set up here. So I've got everything, hopefully I've got everything that I need. I've got a big bowl of ice here. And I was going to tell you about this product that Linda brought. Now, there's a lot of gin companies mostly, but whiskey companies as well, who are now seeing that this sort of sober positive movement is becoming quite important. And I have a 23-year-old godson who doesn't drink alcohol because it doesn't really agree with him. And he said it's really sad when he goes out with his friends because they are all drinking and they never do anything that doesn't involve going out drinking. And so he feels quite left out. So hi, Jeff. How you going? So there's a lot of companies that have made sort of non-alcoholic versions of things like this one here, the Lyre. This is a dry London well, they can't call it gin because it's not actually gin. But they all smell a bit weird, the ones of those that I've tasted. So, Linda, this Lyre set is a Negroni set, which has got Italian orange, which I think is supposed to be instead of the Campari, and Aperitif Rosso, which is instead of the red vermouth. So I've got a different solution for a Negroni that doesn't involve pretend alcohol. It just involves different things to replace the flavours of the alcohol. So we'll make that last. I think what we're going to do first is make the mojitos. So for a mojito, you need a tall glass. You need some sugar. G'day, Shell and Andrew. How you going? Oh, Beyond Meat, chorizo tacos, barramundi. Yum, delicious. So good timing, Shell, because we're just starting on the mojitos. So a bit of sugar, lots of mint. There you go, make a mess with the mint. I've got 2 glasses because I'm going to make an alcoholic version and a non-alcoholic version. So what I'll do first is get my mint and put a bit of that in each of those glasses. So with a mojito, it's a very simple drink. It's just about the mint and the lime juice and a little bit of sugar and soda water. And if you want to include alcohol, you can put some rum in there. So I like to use lots of mint because I figure it's kind of the hero ingredient in the drink. So lots of mint in those glasses. Now, we haven't had people to the... Hello, Anne-Marie, how you going? I know. Oh, hi, Craig. Oh, yes. Well, I was going to talk to you about alcohol-free wine. I haven't tasted any that I've enjoyed. And so that's about a teaspoon of sugar, which is how much I would usually put into something like this. Because the restaurant hasn't been going for a while, we've got lots of these little sugar sachets, which means I don't need to measure things, which is great. So sugar and the mint. I will answer your question in a minute, Craig, but I'm very busy, as you can see. Now, you need something to mash the mint and the sugar up together. It's called muddling, this action, and it's about getting the oil, the essential oils out of the mint leaves, and also dissolving the sugar. Hello, Peter. Where's the gong? I'm looking for the dramatic gong. I can't see it. Anyway, so you smash it, basically, and all that mint. So we started up with a glass full of milk. All that mint gets pushed down, and then you have it on the... Oh, I just broke that glass, so that's something that you don't want to do. Let's try with this one. Very old glasses. It was me banging against the glasses, it was too. Right, thank you. There's going to be lots of noises tonight. I'll try not to break any more glasses. Anyway, that's all right. So now that I have given that a good smash and all that beautiful mint has come up into the air around me, lime juice that I squeezed earlier, that's a 30 ml measure off the top of my cocktail shaker, so that's quite useful. Now, our recipe for our virgin mojito, which hopefully some of you are making along, said the juice of 2 to 3 limes. Now, it's very dependent on how big your limes are. So I would say somewhere between 1 to 2 of these caps in here. So I'll put 2 in just because I like things tangy. But for those of you who might have a slightly sweeter tooth than me, this is where your sugar syrup, if you made some, might come in handy, because that's going to be really, it's going to be really tangy. Also, our limes are very, 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 very fresh. So then you got your lime juice, you got your mint, then you put lots of ice in. Lots of ice. Come on, ice. Put a bit more ice in. There we go. One more ice block. Give it a little stir. Oops. And soda water. If you want to make this alcoholic, you can add 30 to 60 mils of white rum, or for this one, we don't have rum in the house, but we have, yes, Lachlan, you can crush your mint and sugar in a mortar and pestle first and then put it into the glass if you're worried about breaking your glasses, absolutely. This is called cachaça, which is basically, it's a sugar cane syrup, sugar cane spirit, which is what rum is, but this is from Brazil rather than from the Caribbean. And it's a little bit rougher. But I'm not going to make this one alcoholic. Sorry, I should have this up here. Topping it up. Beautiful. There we go. And then give it a really gentle, like I've got this lovely long-handled spoon. Give it a nice gentle stir. And you'll see I've left some stalks on my mint, which was very sloppy of me. But you've got a lovely, refreshing, hello Polly, a lovely, refreshing, long drink. I need a straw for this one. I'll show you another little bartender's trick. If you're making a drink for someone else and you want to check, hello Jeremy. I'm busy making the drinks at the moment, Jeremy, but those are all very good questions. So a bartender's trick, if you're making a drink for someone else but you want to test that you've got the balance right, you just put your straw in, you put your finger on the top, that creates a vacuum, and you drink it like that. It's very tangy. I think probably most of you will want to put a bit more sugar in there, but that's your virgin mojito. Add a measure or two of rum in there, and you'll have a beautiful classic mojito, which is fantastic. Now, that brings us to Jeremy's question. Oh, yes, Kay has said that she usually muddles her lime wedges as well as the mint, so you can absolutely do that, and that's what that looks like. So half a lime cut into 4 wedges. You get these little tiny wedges, and you put them in the bottom of the glass with the sugar and the mint and mush them all up together, or in your mortar and pestle first and then put it into the glass. And that gives you a more complex mojito because you get the essential oils from the rind of the lime. I'll just pop a little quarter of lime in the top of that one. Yeah, so a lovely drink for a summer's day for sipping and watching the sunset. What does alcohol do to a drink? Well, apart from it getting you... Oh, so Jeff, I just used a teaspoon of sugar. Now that will make a drink that's quite sour and not very sweet. So you can use your sugar syrup and use maybe a couple of teaspoons of sugar syrup, or up to 15 mils of sugar syrup. It's about learning what your balance is between the sourness of the lime juice and the sweetness of the sugar. Because if you make it too sweet, then it won't be refreshing. But if it's too sour for somebody who doesn't like sour things, then it'll be too hard to drink. So it's about getting that balance right. So I just use sugar, but you can absolutely add some sugar syrup in there if it's tasting a little bit too sharp for you at the moment. What does alcohol bring to a drink? So it brings alcohol, obviously, so it gives you that nice little buzz of having a drink. But it does other things, which I think is more important. It brings flavour and it brings body. And when you're making a mocktail, you're trying to reproduce those flavours, but also trying to get some body into a drink, that some glycerols, and the alcohol is sugar that's been transformed into alcohol. So you don't want to just add more sugar because that's going to make it really sweet. Although that's why we use quite a lot of citrus juice in a mocktail, because that'll balance the sugar. The acid will balance the sugar. So mixing them together and seeing how the sugar and the acid work together is quite an interesting experiment. I agree, Jeff. The balance is always the trickiest bit, and that's why the little straw trick is quite useful. But alcohol will tend to give a wine a savouriness and a complexity that it's kind of hard sometimes to reproduce in a mocktail. So one of the reasons that people are using these kind of things, Alison, the Seadrift New South Wales seaweed, coriander and stuff distilled non-alcoholic base, definitely will check it out. But usually, and one of the reasons that I don't think non-alcoholic wine really works is because with wine, you can't add something else in to give it better texture. And once you've taken the alcohol out, then there's something missing in the palate. There's something missing in the way it feels, it's missing in the way that it tastes. And usually they replace that with sugar. Non-alcoholic beer seems to work better, but that's usually because beer, particularly low alcohol beer to non-alcoholic beer, it's a lot less alcohol to take out of it. So with beer, it works. With cocktails, if you kind of learn how to balance the sugar and the acid and the different flavours, then you can make it work really nicely. With wine, it's just the wine, and it's not wine. You can't make wine that doesn't have alcohol in it. That's grape juice. So you can get wine and then de-alcoholize it, but that takes other characters of the wine out, takes the texture of the wine out. So I think non-alcoholic wine is the least successful of the non-alcoholic versions of alcoholic drinks that we enjoy today. So Jeremy's best Tom Collins he's ever had nothing to do with the spirit used. It was the balance of sweet and sour. That's right. I think, and you know, this is what real cocktail masters get right. And I think making a good mojito, making a good Tom Collins, making a good anything that involves getting the balance right is one of the things that sort of your cocktail masters really kind of work on, which is why I usually stick to pretty simple cocktails that I don't need to work too hard on getting right. It's just put that together, make it cold, and that'll work well. The Negroni is certainly that sort of a drink, and it'll be interesting to see what you think of the non-alcoholic version for those of you who are doing it. Hello, Jeff and Sue. Lovely to see you. You've got your chat working. Awesome. I tested out the next two cocktails quite extensively. So the next one that I'm going to make, and I'm going to make an alcoholic version and a non-alcoholic version of this. I'm going to try not to break any more glasses. Richard's sitting there drinking his beer, so I'm going to make Dad. Dad doesn't want a mocktail. He would like a cocktail. Craig, wine cocktails that I like. I do like a Kir Royale, which is just champagne with a little bit of cassis in it. That's pretty good. I have been known to make a pretty awesome sangria for parties in summer. I like to make a white sangria because then you can put peaches and nectarines and orange and lemon and lime in it with white wine and a bit of sugar, and that's very delicious and very refreshing and yummy. Mojitos in Vienna. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think a mojito is quite a difficult one to get right. And it's, to be honest with you guys, it's probably not my favorite cocktail. So I probably don't make it often enough to get it really good. But I do really like the virgin version of it, when you don't get your mint stuck up your up your straw. Because very, very, very relaxing. Oh, Peter, non-alcoholic Aperol Spritz surprise. So does that mean it's Aperol Spritz without any Aperol or Spritz in it, Pete? Thank you, Keely. I don't think that would be the first book that I would write, Keely, but maybe. Okay, let's do a bramble, because this one I'm actually really excited with. And this, I think, illustrates how you don't need alcohol in a cocktail for it to taste really delicious and for it to be really balanced. So I'm going to use an old-fashioned glass for this one. And they say in the recipe to use crushed ice, but I don't have any crushed ice. So I'm going to just use normal ice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the cocktail and the mocktail in the glass, and then I'm going to put the ice in and stir it on the ice. So what we need for our bramble cocktail, I've got Verjus, and we just happen to used to make Verjus at Moorooduc, and we've still got a bit at Celador. So if you wanted to have a play around with this, Verjus is really nice with just as an alternative to lemon, lime and bitters. If you do about 1/3 Verjus, 2/3 soda water and a splash of bitters, it's very refreshing on ice, delicious. Alison, I'm glad you're loving your alcoholic bramble. I'm going to make an alcoholic bramble and a non-alcoholic bramble right now. So as I told you on my email, I'm using raspberries because I love them, and I got excited that they were in season again. So I put 3 raspberries in each glass. 2, 3 raspberries in each glass. Richard, I'm going to make you a Negroni. I think you will enjoy that. So 3 raspberries in each glass. For my non-alcoholic bramble, Verjus, 30 mils. Let me just check my recipe again. So you need a recipe for this because this is one that I've sort of turned into a mocktail from a recipe with gin. So in fact, 60 mils of Verjus. So two capfuls of Verjus. And for the alcoholic version, Craig, that could be quite interesting, Pinot Gris on skins as a sangria. Correct. So for the alcoholic version, a nice clean gin. And we put 60 mils of gin in there. So the Verjus just takes the place of the gin. And because if you haven't got Verjus and you're using grape juice, it'll do exactly the same thing. I think that's a really good substitute. We've got lemon juice that I squeezed before, and we're going to use 30 mils of lemon juice. So again, we've got a bit of sourness going on here from the lemon juice. So that goes in on top. And the same with the gin. At this stage, you can either leave the raspberries floating, or you can use your muddling stick and just give them a really gentle little squash on the bottom so they release their aromas. And if you're using blackberries, same. I think raspberries and blackberries are really good as interchangeable berries in this drink. I probably wouldn't use blueberries or strawberries because they don't kind of have that same tang to it. So we're at this stage. Now I put the ice in. It's exciting, isn't it? I have to remember which one's the alcoholic one and which one's the non-alcoholic one. What are people saying? Craig. Lachlan, my preferred white wine in the white sangria that I make. We used to make an unoaked Chardonnay called Moorooduc Blanc, which I've used quite successfully. So they look like that now. That's the non-alcoholic one. That's the alcoholic one. They look almost exactly the same, don't they? They need one more ingredient. Now, some people will absolutely be horrified at this, but I'm going to put Ribena in both. I've already got 2 shots of gin in the alcoholic one, and you can put creme de cassis in if you want to. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a hay fever. That was a snortily snort. But I'm going to use Ribena to give it that lovely blackcurrant character. And you kind of swirl it in on top so that it swirls through the drink. And then you don't want to use any sugar syrup or anything like that to sweeten it up because you've got lots of sugar in your Ribena. So now I've got 2 brambles. I've got a non-alcoholic and an alcoholic version there. Now you can... I don't think it really needs any more garnish because we've got the raspberry in there. You can leave it like that to have the sort of the layered effect when you hand it over to someone, which is quite nice. Peter and Karen, I love Ribena too, and I always have Ribena in the house because I like it on a cold winter's night, hot as a pre-bed drink. There you go. Now you know something else about me. Alison, we can't get enough Chardonnay. It was really interesting. The Moorooduc Blanc we made for a few years when we had an excess of Chardonnay fruit and not enough people buying more expensive Chardonnays. So we thought we'll make an unoaked version, get it out quicker, put less money into making the wine and make it a slightly less expensive wine. After that was back in the, when did we do that, Dad? In the early noughties? Anyway, no, Moorooduc Blanc. Anyway, after 3 years, things have turned around so much that we now can't get enough Chardonnay to make the Chardonnays that we like. Craig, Ribena is a really good call. So, you know, people talk about Cassis as a character for Bordeaux, for Cabernet-based Bordeaux. People often talk about Cassis, red currant, black currant. If you get a really voluptuous, ripe Napa Cabernet or Cabernet from Australia that is sweeter fruited, often an Australian Cabernet will taste like blackberry jam rather, or black currant jam, whereas a Napa Cabernet will smell like Ribena. It's got that kind of, and in fact, Chilean Cabernet even more so has that real kind of Ribena berry kind of a smell to it. So, guys, who made themselves a bramble, either a mocktail bramble or a cocktail bramble? I'm going to have a little sip of this one. I'm going to give this one to Jill, so don't tell her. Actually, I'll do it with a straw because I'm going to have a little sip of this one. I'm going to give this one to Jill, so don't tell her. Actually, I'll do it with a straw because she won't want my red lipstick on her glass. And that's beautiful. I really love that drink. It's really tangy, so if it's too tart for anyone, again, that lemon juice packs a really big punch. You can put a little bit more Ribena in. Don't put too much in because you don't want it to be too sweet, but you want to get just that right balance of sweetness and sourness, and I think that's delicious. It's so refreshing. I would drink that, and I've done a few actually this week because I'm a bit enamored with this drink. I thought the kids would like the mocktail one of that. I think that this is probably going to be the favourite, at least in the mocktails. It's certainly mine. And the alcoholic version is really interesting. It's the alcohol kind of tempers the acid and carries the flavour of the lemon juice and the cassis going through, and it's really interesting because that's really nice. But I would be just as happy with the non-alcoholic version to have before dinner as a little kind of aperitif before getting stuck into a really nice glass of wine, so I could concentrate on the wine without being half sozzled by the time I got to it. Richard, would you like to try the bramble? There you go. That's a bramble. So that's gin and lemon juice and raspberries, and it should have cassis in it, but yours has got Ribena in it. Okay. It's a double shot of gin, though. That one's for Jill. Mm-hmm. Don't get them mixed up because you won't get any alcohol in that one. It's pretty cool, huh? And I do think, I mean, the one with the alcohol in it, the alcohol kind of dominates all the other flavours, whereas the mocktail version, it doesn't taste like a kid's drink. It doesn't taste like you've made something that's inferior to the alcoholic version. It's slightly different, but I think that the non-alcoholic version has got this lovely purity and brightness to it. And as I say, I agree, Alison. It's both of them are a really lovely summer drink. But if you're having a little party and you know that there are some people who are driving or whatever, and you want to do a fancy cocktail, then that bramble in both versions will make everybody happy, I think. So It's really fun. I think if you use blackberries rather than raspberries, the blackberries give it a slightly deeper, darker fruit flavour. Blackberries are amazing. I didn't realise how amazing blackberries were until a couple of years ago when I had to cook some blackberries down for a cake. And when you cook blackberries, they give off this incredible perfume, sort of like violets and roses. So it's quite a vinous kind of a smell. So, and I think that raspberries as well have a sort of the combination of the raspberry and the lemon juice, very reminiscent of some of the flavours that you get in wine. So things like Pinot Noir, or in a champagne that's got some Chardonnay and some Pinot Noir in it. It's obviously brighter and fruitier in the mocktail and in the cocktail than it is in the wine. But I think that's probably why I really like that version, both the cocktail and mocktail version, but that drink. But I'd never tasted a bramble before, so I'm really excited about having discovered that. So that's really cool. I'm going to make the last drink as well while we're talking. Rob and Deb, some syrup with your black currants, that would be fantastic. And I think even if you just did a gin and tonic and topped it up with a little splash of black currant syrup, homemade Ribena, whatever you want to call it, I think that could work really, really well as well. It's those little fruit concentrates do work really nicely, and the black currant is quite a grown-up flavour. And I don't think I'd want to put cassis in even the alcoholic version, because it just would make it a bit more boozy, which is fine if that's what you want, but it's also good. The other thing with the bramble, if you're finding those flavours quite intense and you want to make it a longer drink, you could put it into a long glass like that, or you could just top it up with a little bit of soda water or lemonade if you need a bit of extra sugar. But soda water, just to give it, you only put a little bit in the top and it gives it a really nice sparkle and gives it a brightness as well, which is really nice. So the final mocktail we're going to make tonight is the Negroni. And this is the one that I thought was going to be the hardest to make it work. Absolutely, Craig. I think it is really. You're not someone who just ate a lot of berries as a kid and as an adult. Berries are always one of my favourite things, and I think I always tune into berries more than other fruit flavours because of that. My grandparents lived in Tasmania, and my grandmother used to grow raspberries, and she had a full vegetable garden. But as a kid, the two things that I was particularly interested in her garden were the vine-ripened tomatoes and the raspberries that she grew in the garden, and we were allowed to go and pick raspberries. Raspberries are quite prickly to pick, but it's well worthwhile. And we'd go and spend a couple of weeks over summer with them every year, and we'd have tomato on bread for lunch, and then we'd have raspberries with cream, and then she'd make raspberry jam because she'd have too many raspberries to do anything with. So that childhood memory of homegrown raspberries is pretty strong and pretty special. So yeah, raspberries are good, and they freeze well as well. That's the other trick. If you're buying raspberries for a cocktail particularly, or to cook or whatever, berries in general, buy them and you're not going to use them until a few days later. Buy them and stick them in the freezer straight away, because they go moldy really quickly. I've discovered if you don't eat them straight away fresh, then they will go moldy quite quickly. And if you freeze them and then defrost them, they go a bit squishy, but they maintain their flavour really, really well. So if it's for a cocktail, if it's for for cooking with them, or something like that, then freezing them is a really good thing to do. Right, Negroni, what do you think of that, Dad? Delicious. We've won him over with a new cocktail. I did say I was going to make him a Negroni, but I'm not sure if we want to feed him 2 cocktails in quick succession. We'll see how we go. So with the Negroni, I like, with my Negroni, to have a big ice block. So there's one big ice block. Let's see if I can get the other one. Oh, Shell, what have you sent me? Pictures. I'm in a bit of trouble with my ice block tray. It wouldn't release the ice block, so now there's little puddles of water in the bottom of the tray. So I'm trying to get them out without spilling water all over the floor and on myself. So bear with me. There we go. Another big ice block. Put that away. So, wild blackberries, absolutely. We kill off all the wild blackberries these days, which is a bit sad. So, a Negroni. and a mocktail Negroni. So, kids, this is where cocktails get really kind of over the top. This has got nothing to sweeten it except for the liqueurs in it. And the Negroni is a cocktail that has become super popular in bars in Melbourne and Sydney, at least, and amongst the hospitality industry. And I think it's partly because it's very alcoholic and partly because it's got lots of layers of flavour. So in a traditional classic Negroni, you have a red vermouth, and I've got an Italian vermouth from our friends at Trembath and Taylor. Now, you can, if you like the idea of that, they've got a red and a white vermouth. It's very nice that you can access on their website that we sent you the link to. It's got Campari, which is this fluoro pink red stuff that somebody told me was coloured with beetles, crushed beetles, but, you know, you don't want to believe everything you read. Campari's weird. It's kind of bitter and it's sweet and it's herbal, and I love it, but it is quite a strange one if you're not used to it. And then gin, just because there's not enough alcohol in the other two, and gin brings a savouriness in. So if you're going to make a mocktail, a non-alcoholic version of a Negroni, then, as I said before, you can buy a pack and use these three things, and I will do that later, but I'm not going to do that tonight because I think it's really interesting to replace the alcohol with something completely different, but try and find that sort of balance of bitterness and sweetness and tanginess and savouriness, and it's quite a tricky one. So this recipe that I found on the internet calls for you to do a little bit of prep work. So has anyone done this? Is anyone making the Negroni mocktail? If not, doesn't matter. If you like a Negroni or kids, if you don't mind something bitter, so if you're quite into black olives and those kind of things, you might find this to be quite delicious. If you're not really into bitter flavours, you might find this a bit too much. So Peter McIntyre and shellac. What? Oh, cochineal. It's crushed better. Yes, that's right, Peter and Karen, cochineal. And I believe that there's cochineal in Campari, which makes it that beautiful colour. What makes my syrup this beautiful colour is grenadine syrup. So it's a little bit more fluoro pink than the Campari, but it's quite similar in colour, I reckon. It's not bad. So the syrup is made of, you boil up, if you can look up the recipe that I sent you out, but basically you take a grapefruit and you chop it up into little wedges, and you cook it up with some water and some sugar to make a grapefruit syrup. You include some coriander, and what was the other thing that goes in there? Coriander and cardamom. So some really interesting kind of spicy flavours. Yes, absolutely, grenadine in tequila sunrise. So grenadine is non-alcoholic but used in quite a lot of cocktails to sweeten them up. I think it's cherry based. It's either cherry or pomegranate based, but yeah, it's quite funny. So Paul's favourite drink in the world is the Negroni. Now, Paul, I'd be very interested to know if you're going to have a play with the mocktail Negroni, but don't expect it to be a Negroni. But see, it's quite interesting to see how they work. So let me get my little measure out. It's got full of cassis at the moment, so I'll just give it a little rinse. Oh, gosh. It's exciting, isn't it? Give it a rinse with some lime juice. That'll get rid of the sugar. So I've seen a few different Negroni recipes, but the people that I know and trust who've taught me how to make a Negroni basically say it's 30 mils each of Campari, gin and vermouth. To make this very lovely mocktail version, we do 30 mils of the pink grapefruit sugar syrup on your ice. Doesn't that look gorgeous? And then, and if you've made the grapefruit spirit, it smells a little bit like, no, I can imagine, Paul, sometimes you don't want to muck with your favourite things, but then I put 30 mils of verjus in. You can use white grape juice. The syrup for the mocktail is pretty good, isn't it, Renee? It's not, it doesn't make, if you love a Negroni, this mocktail version is not going to replace a Negroni, but it might please you in similar ways. 30 mils, 25 to 30 mils of water in on top. Then you get your little spoon and stir it till it's cold. So the stirring, the cooling it down by melting some of the ice is a really important part of the Negroni making process. And then, and I think this is imperative for this cocktail, a slice or half a slice of orange. So there you go. There's my mock Negroni. I'll just make you a real one so that we can compare and contrast. How's everyone going? Are you bored yet? I hope there are some people making Negronis along with me. So 30 mils of red vermouth. This vermouth is quite brown as a red vermouth. So we're going to have a different colour already because we're adding that sort of browner coloured vermouth in there. Ow. The pink syrup, Anne-Marie, it's in the recipe. It's not called, the thing that I put in here to make it pink is called grenadine, which I think is pomegranate based. But that syrup is not just grenadine. There's a tiny bit of grenadine in it just to colour it up. And it's sugar syrup with grapefruit cooked for about 10 minutes, cooked together, and you kind of squish it. And there's a slice of orange in the mix as well, and some cardamom and coriander seeds. So it's quite complex and got lots of different flavours going on. Okay, kids. The syrup should last in the fridge, Renee, for a few weeks, I'd say. So this is my alcoholic Negroni that I'm just giving it a bit of a stir. That's how we're making mocktails, Jeff, so that you don't get too silly partway through the session. So a nice little stir there. And we'll pop our orange slice in here. And cheers. I've got a mocktail and a cocktail. Yes, Peter, you could play. What I play is some sort of Italian trad jazz with my Camparis. So the mocktail is possibly going to be challenging for the kids because it still has that bitterness that you see in a normal Negroni. So really interested to know, Paul, what the kids think of the Negroni. And if they kind of go from the first mouthful, have another sip because it takes a little while to get used to the combination of flavours. Sue discovered that yesterday when I trialled it on her. But you've got this bitterness from the grapefruit and you've got the sweetness from the sugar syrup and you've got the verjus in there as well. It's quite interesting. Cotty, we've still got more Moorooduc verjus, so it's a good option for, yeah, possibly Robin Deb, a little bossa nova sounds good. I'm going to have a little sip of the real thing. That's really interesting because the Campari comes through really strongly in the same way that with the mocktail, the grapefruit syrup comes through really strongly. So again, with a cocktail like this, you can really taste the alcohol. And it makes it feel warmer in your mouth. So Jeremy was asking right at the beginning of the session, what does the alcohol do? So it kind of accentuates the flavours. It makes the flavours of the ingredients a little bit stronger, but the alcohol also makes the mouth feel warmer, and it contrasts with the coldness of the drink. All of those things I think is really rather awesome. Nice, Simon. We still have quite a lot of Moorooduc Verjus. We haven't made it for a while, and I don't think we're planning to make it again. But if it goes bananas, then who knows? We could make it again. But Zach and Jack, 13 mocktail. Yes, okay, so the 13 and 15-year-olds think the Negroni mocktail's okay with a touch of sugar syrup. And the other thing that you can do with a Negroni mocktail is, again, put a bit of lemonade or a bit of soda water in there to make it a slightly longer drink. And when I say a little bit, I don't mean much at all. So that's your Negroni mocktail. Remember, we've already put a little bit of water in there to sort of water it down. So just a little bit of fizzy water to give it a bit of, and that's just a little splash, and it's amazing what a difference a tiny little bit of bubble will give you. Makes it taste a little bit different. I think probably when I was experimenting with all of these, I think the mojito, the mocktail mojito with a bit more sugar syrup would be a really lovely, refreshing alternative to lemonade or whatever. And you can make it, as Kay was saying at the beginning, someone else was saying, you can put, I think it was Rob, you can put lime in your gin and tonic, you can put lemon in your mojito, and it makes it, if you make something like a mojito but put lemon juice in it rather than lime juice and put gin in it instead of rum, then you've got a Tom Collins. So, these drinks are all based on, so that's basically a fizz, and you can make it with any type of citrus fruit and white spirit, and it'll be a gin fizz or a rum fizz or whatever. Your bramble is basically a muddled gin drink, which is a much more modern style of cocktail. And the Negroni was invented by an Italian who was drinking, I think they're called biciclettas, which means bicycle. And a bicicletta is Campari and vermouth and Prosecco. And he just said, it just doesn't have enough kick for me. What can you do, bartender? And the bartender said, watch out, I'm going to substitute your Prosecco for gin, and the Negroni was invented. So pretty super. I really like this Negroni mocktail, but I think it's probably going to be the one that's most challenging for younger palates. 3 votes from the kids for Negroni, for Bella, 3 votes for the Virgin. Okay, very good. They do, Peter. The bicicletta, it's a good lighter style of cocktail as well. So, do you know what? I think it's such a lovely thing to play with, and I think that teaching yourself and teaching your kids about combinations of flavour and balance and things like that. You don't need to have alcohol in a drink to make it worthwhile and valid. You just need to combine flavours in the right way to get something that's delicious and refreshing and has a little bit, often these cocktails and mocktails do have a little bit of bitterness to them. And you don't, as I said before, you don't want to have too much sugar, because the idea of these drinks is to have them before dinner. They're an aperitif. They're supposed to make you a little bit hungry, but they're also, and that's that the bitterness and the acid in them make you a bit hungry. The little bit of sugar in them will suppress your appetite enough so that you don't eat too many chips with your cocktails while you're drinking your cocktails, so that then you can eat a lovely a lovely meal afterwards. And I think that the art of balancing flavours, you can play with cocktails a lot and mocktails to get this sort of idea of how sugar and acid work together and how different fruit flavours work together and all that kind of thing. No votes for the Negroni. Jackson didn't like any of them. Renee. George liked the brambles and better, and then the mojito. Yep, fair enough. Sorry, Jackson. We'll try again next time. What was I going to say? I just think, having an understanding of how flavours go together, it's something that you can learn when you're mixing cocktails, and then you can use that understanding when you're tasting wine, talking about wine and how the flavours of wine work together, because we often talk in wine courses about acid and sugar and alcohol and how all of those things balance each other. So, keep playing, keep enjoying, whether you're non-alcoholic or alcoholic tonight. Cheers. Stay safe, look after yourselves. That's fair enough, Renee. And, you don't have to like anything. It's all good. Next week, we are coming back with box 5. If you haven't ordered box 5 already, then get on with it. I've been told that we've only got limited stocks left, but I think that I might be able to find a little bit more of the wine. But we do absolutely have a very exciting box of back vintage estate Chardonnays and Pinot Noirs that we're going to be starting next week with a Chardonnay from 2010. So that'll be lovely. Estate Chardonnay 2010. You've got a little letter in your box with the wines this time around. I've just listed the order in which we'll be tasting the wines, so that because all the labels look exactly the same, you just need to make sure you read the numbers on them as well as the grape variety. It was lots and lots of fun to see you all tonight. Thank you. Thanks, Jack and Zach and kids. Thanks, everybody. Oh, good, Anne-Marie. I'm glad. Looks like we're going to be in lockdown for a little bit longer, so if we can't entertain ourselves with a few mocktails and cocktails and wine, it would really be a shame. So I look forward to seeing all of you next Thursday. Kids, you can make yourselves a mocktail. Parents, we're on the wine again next week. So take care, everyone, and look after yourselves. Enjoy the sunshine when it comes out. And I think it's going to get cold here tomorrow for a few days, but that's all right too. We can light the fire again. It's all good. Cheers, everyone. Thank you.